So how would you fix NHL 24? What are the main issues that need to be fixed for next year's release? Let's take a deeper look at the gameplay, game modes, and the overall feel of the game. My name is Alex and welcome to the Pucklug channel. Let's get right into it. This year the gameplay felt stronger, the pressure gauge was a great addition and allowed for more creativity in the offensive zone and gave a reason to actually want to attack the net. The new full controller scheme allowed for more straightforward gameplay, closing the gap between seasoned vets like myself who still can't pull off the Michigan, and the newcomers who are trying to have fun and just play hockey. The increased arena damage, allowing for more authentic feel, being able to break the glass with a puck shot or breaking it with a player's face, whichever it was, felt more authentic and added a nice touch to the game. The hitting system was a great new touch. It allowed for more vulnerability to players who missed a big hit and allowed for more creativity when hitting a player, either hip check or hitting them in the leg or hitting them over the boards. It was a great addition this year. When the full gauge is going and the puck is moving quickly and the players are opening lanes, the new desperation animations for the goalies was a great addition and really felt more authentic than previous years. Now all these things are positives, but there are a lot of cons this year for gameplay. Let's start off with one that a lot of people don't really talk about. Each year, the game starts off really strong. The gameplay feels really unique and different from the last year. As the year progresses, we get little tiny updates. The progress of the game feels sluggish and feels a little slower than before, and we start to get closer and closer to last year's game. Now you can go into previous tuning updates and go as far back as possible, but it does feel like it's getting harder and harder to go back to whichever state of the game you prefer, and that's a big drawback for me, and that's an EA thing that they've been doing for years. So let's talk about the cons of goaltending this year. It is a nice update that they have the desperation saves, but there is a lot of main fundamental issues that don't work whatsoever. Straight on shots and sometimes even the simplest wrist shot gets past the goalie. It's incredibly frustrating. Now, it's no surprise that EA does allow that to happen time to time because they want to make the game feel competitive. If you're crushing a guy 6-0 after the second period, it's going to do that to you. You will allow the floppy little goals in, you'll let the sliders go through. It doesn't matter. It's what EA does. But when I'm tied in a game 0-0 and offline or online, I've seen it on both, and there's just no reason for a puck to go right through my goalie with no issues whatsoever. That's my problem. Sometimes goalie positioning can be far off and the goalie seems to not know where his net is, even if they're a 90 overall and sometimes even if they're a 70 overall. The difference between a high overall goalie and a low overall goalie to me makes zero difference. It's one of the biggest issues that EA has faced for years, and I don't know if they'll ever fix it. Even sliders don't fix this issue. This is a fundamental core AI issue that cannot be fixed by user control. Now, I've spent a long time playing offline. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love franchise mode, and be a pro at times can be fun. I spent a lot of time with the CPU and the AI, and I've learned a lot of the little nooks and crannies of the system. And honestly, at this point, I think I've gotten a pretty good job at defending it without any problems. But where does the problems arrive? How am I getting scored on? And as I mentioned before, the CPU goalies are really not great. So have you ever tried just lowering the level and seeing what happens when you play offline? I've done Pro to Superstar and I've tried to see the differences, and in my opinion, the difference between Pro and Superstar isn't who's attacking, it's what your team's goalie, what are they doing in net? That's where the difference is made. To me, I can see either a goalie making 0 saves or all the saves, and what I've noticed is the higher the level you go, the more likely your human goalie is going to let in the biggest dud of his life. Now that we cover gameplay, and there are many issues and still some that I haven't even talked about, game modes is a big one. The NHL developers last year explicitly mentioned that they are not going to make any changes to game modes this year in NHL 24. So as theorized and rumored that we would get some pretty big updates for NHL 25. But it doesn't excuse leaving the NHL 24 offline players like myself completely dry with nothing to do. One of my biggest caveats with all offline modes, especially be a pro and franchise mode, is the lack of freedom to do whatever you would like. The fact that I cannot just go into it and edit my team or edit the rosters or edit my players or coaches' names or anything like that. The fact that I can't do anything like that with ease is incredibly infuriating and kind of a slap in the face to those who just want to have fun and play the game however they would like. I mentioned this in my last how to fix video in NHL 23. I said the exact same stuff, just allow for freedom and the creativity of offline players to do whatever they want. The best example of this is NBA 2K. You can adjust salary cap. You can adjust age development rate. You can adjust overalls. You can adjust new teams. You can take away teams. You can change already established teams' jerseys. You can customize anything you want. The fact you can't do it for NHL is incredibly infuriating, and it's just one of those things that should be a standard in any sports game. Let's talk about Be a Pro. And honestly, what can I say that you guys don't already know? It needs a complete overhaul. It is by far the worst game mode in the entire game. There is an incredible lack of freedom, and there is an incredible lack of need to do anything in the game. So let's say you're a part of an OHL team and you make your way all the way to the NHL and you're up to draft day and you had probably the worst possible draft of your entire life. You played like garbage and you go way down the list, right? You're like 170th, okay? You get drafted to your team and you get to play in the preseason. You get your shot, but you screw it up. You're terrible. What happens? It doesn't matter. You're fourth line material for me. Like, there's no way. The fact that they took away the minor league in this game, and it's been gone for a while, is atrocious. And it takes away the fun of Be a Pro. And it's a big chunk of it. The ability to just, have a quest or a story to your character is completely gone. You cannot be yourself. You cannot have any sort of creativity in the game. It is a linear story that is set with fourth line grind all the way to the first, and back and forth and over again. And honestly, once you make it past the second line, even the first line, you're not going anywhere. To make it all the way back down that list is incredibly difficult, and even if you do the worst possible things, the system doesn't allow you to fail. What else can I say about Be a Pro? There's so much more that can be done, and it really needs an overhaul. So let's talk about the feel of NHL 24. A lot of people like the gameplay. A lot of people like the state of the game. And honestly, it's probably one of the better NHLs we've had in the last couple of years. So one of my biggest issues with the game is a lack of an overall feel. It's something that makes NHL feel unique from any other sports game. And honestly, this feels like the most generic sports game you could play. And honestly, the biggest reason for that is the lack of presentation. It does not feel like an NHL broadcast every time I launch the game. What it does feel like is an NHL arcade game every time I launch it. Now, I like the new introduction with the swinging lights and the new on-ice display. That's great. But we need just a little bit more. Some crowd interactions. Can you imagine an exterior shot of your fans walking into the arena? You get to see the concession stand. You get to see the arena. You get to see a bit of just a unique perspective that you don't see while you're playing the game to build up the hype for the game. If it's a rival game, maybe you see a couple of different people talking, different jerseys, talking to each other, maybe arguments. It's just something to bring a little bit more life to the game. How about when we cut to the stands after a close play? A fan's reaction would be really nice to see. After a goal, a close-up with the fans would be really fun to see. A different perspective, a shot from a fan's perspective. I mean, the list could go on and on and on. And honestly, I think they could do it. A lot of this has already been implemented into EAFC. It's nothing new. This is something they could take from their neighbors and just say, hey, we're going to borrow this and put it into the game. I would be totally okay with that. It's funny. You look back at NHL 15 and you laugh about how bad it was on, the PS4 and the Xbox One. But honestly, there's a lot of presentation features in that game that would be great to have. Even just real exterior shots, real footage of the arenas, and maybe even of people walking through the arena would be a great addition to next year's game. Listen, here are my final thoughts. I mean, let's be honest here. NHL EA is not a big game. They're not selling millions and millions and millions of copies every year like EAFC is. So it's unrealistic to expect massive change on this game. They have to divide their time and conquer each piece by piece by piece. Let's be realistic here, a smaller dev team means they can only focus on one big aspect of the game per year. I'm totally understanding of that situation, and I give a lot of credit to the developers who put their heart and soul behind this. Ultimately, it's not their choice of where the game goes, it's all EA, the top guys saying, let's focus on the online modes, let's focus where the money is. And I'm sure there are some really creative and passionate offline developers out there who really want to put their foot forward and say we should be focusing on this, but ultimately are cut off by greed. So I sympathize with the developers and I appreciate everything that you do, but I feel like a lot of the things I've mentioned in this video are extremely simple and can be done regardless of budget and regardless of the time that you have. These are little implementations that should have been done previously and could have been carried over from game to game to game. Ultimately, NHL 24 is honestly in a good position, and if we continue on this track, updating the game massively in one area each year, who knows where we can be down the road. So we're at the point of the year where we're kind of tired of playing NHL 24 and we're waiting for the next game. So I thought I'd share my thoughts. Now my ideas are completely different from yours, so if you have anything to say, please let me know in the comments down below. And share this video with any friends who you have on your ESHL teams or just anywhere who enjoy the NHL franchise and want it to be better. And as always, leave a like if you're new and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.